In 2016, the tiny West Virginia town of Richwood was hit by a massive flood. Things haven't gone so well since then. Much of the reconstruction from the flood remains unfinished, and the city is bitterly divided.
Nothing's done. Nothing's done.
You're liars. FEMA are nothing but liars.
Now, the whole process is the subject of an 18-month audit into the town's handling of federal disaster money. And 3 city officials, including 2 mayors, are facing criminal charges.
Order. Objection.
Andrew, how are you today?
Doing pretty good, you?
Well, it's been a different day. Okay.
Lloyd Atkins has been the dentist of Richwood for more than 40 years.
Listen, your articular eminence is not high enough. It's just the way God made you.
He's also the county commissioner.
So I'll see you next winter. Okay. All right. Thank you much. Okay.
When the flood came, Adkins volunteered to help figure out how to work with FEMA to put everything together again.
We didn't have any electricity. We didn't have any food. We didn't have any water. Okay, and Richwood was simply over their head to start with. They cried out to the state, but there wasn't anyone that came.
Does anyone in this town have experience of working with FEMA?
Not really.
Is anyone in the city council a lawyer or an accountant?
No. Okay.
Along with others, like an insurance agent and a traveling salesman, Adkins sat on a committee that oversaw how the town should spend the $3 million that FEMA allocated for its recovery. Richwoodians were doing what people in a small town are so good at when disaster strikes: calling on their community. That's how Chuck Tosing, who runs the public pool, got it mud-free and back open in just 3 weeks.
There's no pamphlet that says this is how you recover from the flood. So you have to rely on the information that comes from the people who came into town.
Is the point that this is very complicated stuff?
Oh yeah, it's super complicated.
FEMA rules are complicated. They also don't always fit the reality of life in small towns. One rule bars the use of FEMA funds to enrich family and friends, making it hard to bid out contracts.
Richwood is a small town, 1,800 people, right? We're in a natural disaster. We need to get things fixed. If you're in rural Appalachia and you're gonna find someone who does some job that you need done, they're probably gonna be a friend.
Another thing is that FEMA only pays for 75% of recovery in West Virginia, leaving towns to cover the rest. Tiny Richwood, with an annual budget of about $1 million, didn't have that kind of cash lying around.
Debris cleanup for this city was a little over $700,000. Well, the city doesn't have the finances for that. They may have had $50,000 in the bank. They literally borrowed from Peter to pay Paul. They borrowed from different funds, okay? They mixed their monies, which they shouldn't have done.
Right.
But that's why they did it, okay?
Because
they're just trying to get it done.
That didn't look right to state auditors, who in late 2017 opened an investigation.
They did not have a good system of accountability. They didn't have a really good system of procurement. There was no checks and balances to make sure that monies weren't going towards friends, families, associates, high school buddies.
Are you confident that crimes were committed in Richwood?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, unequivocally.
The fence set on this side over here.
The final audit resulted in charges of embezzlement and fraud against several officials. They all deny the charges. But the larger problem it exposed was systemic. In an effort to meet FEMA's standards, the town hired private disaster consultants at a cost of $250,000. The audit found their advice wasn't always so great. And it said their very existence, part of a booming industry, meant the state wasn't doing enough to guide towns through the process. Richwood's consultants didn't want to speak on camera. Neither did FEMA. Daniel Craig, a FEMA disaster consultant, has sat on both sides of the desk as a former director of FEMA's recovery division.
Hire a consultant means you can probably speed your reimbursement. It can quicken your recovery processes, hopefully, if you have a good consultant. But every consultant has good days and bad days, I must say.
Why doesn't FEMA do all that for towns?
So think of how many towns have a disaster. FEMA has tens of thousands of applicants every year. There's just not enough people to do that training.
It sounds like for these towns, their only hope is to hire some outside consultant to help them figure this out.
Which is true, but you also have to remember, they got to pay us. So some of these small communities, it's very difficult.
Are consultants, in a way, a little like ambulance chasers?
Oh, yes. It's kind of, I would absolutely say they're kind of like that, because you are following storm. We're there to help people, to get them through the worst points in their life. I hope the system gets to the point where all recovery really happens local, that you don't necessarily need the federal government.
West Virginia apparently had the same idea. Just as the audit recommended, the state is now offering towns disaster management training. But all that will take time, and until the system is fixed, small towns like Richwood and their local officials are going to keep making mistakes and paying for them.
Well, this one was a furniture store, okay, and H&P was here. And we actually had a hotel here, okay? Oh, really? Yeah, really snazzy hotel.
The state says there's some malfeasance here.
Yes.
Do you think it was malicious, though? Do you feel like that?
No. Those people busted their butts, okay? Did they do everything by the books? Certainly not, okay? The people were just trying to survive and get the town back up on its feet again.